the opportunity to do what they've dreamed about.
Welcome to Dodgers Dogs. Casey Porter here. I am a little bit under the weather. I'm going to try to talk myself through this. Actually, what I'm going to try to do is I bring in my partner, Austin Brubaker. I'm going to let him take over most of the show. We have a lot to talk about tonight. Obviously, Shohei Ohtani, the contract, his press conference, some of the stipulations in his contract, the proposed trade today that the Dodgers were in talk about. So, a lot to talk about. Also, Yorbit Vivas, excuse me, in that trade. So, Austin, take over.
Yes, I would be happy to take over, Casey. Thanks for having me on. Yeah, certainly since the last time I was on, which was a week ago yesterday, or a week ago from today, certainly quite a bit has taken place for the Los Angeles Dodgers. You had obviously the big signing of Shohei Ohtani, which we will get into, probably be the first thing that we go ahead and talk about. You had that massive signing. Then you had the even bigger news, perhaps, of the details of the contract being that most of the money is deferred, allowing for the Dodgers to create some type of super team that they can go ahead and mold. As a result of that, they had to make the first trade, and the trade that for right now is the only one that is confirmed with the Yorbit Vivas Victor Gonzalez trade. We will be getting into that and make sure we do our due diligence to talk about both of those players and talk about the return that they got in that. And then there's also news today that broke last night, actually, while I was sleeping, about a potential trade with the Tampa Bay Rays. It has not been confirmed. The players have not been completely decided yet, but there are rumors of a proposed trade that seems to be gaining some sort of steam between the Tampa Bay Rays and the Los Angeles Dodgers to send Tyler Glasnow and Manuel Margot to the Dodgers for Ryan Pepio and Johnny DeLuca. We will give our thoughts on that, and I know that Casey and I have plenty of thoughts to talk about that. So certainly a lot of news, and not to mention Daniel Hudson back in a minor league deal. Certainly a lot in the news for the Los Angeles Dodgers. I know you had a chance to do a great show on Saturday, kind of talking about Shohei Ohtani. I have not had a chance to talk about Shohei Ohtani, but there's a lot to talk about today.
No doubt about that. So, first of all, I want to talk about the Yorbit Vivas trade and Victor Gonzalez to the Yankees. It was a win-win for both situations in the sense that Yorbit Vivas was blocked once that Dave came out and said that Mookie Betts was going to play second base. Yorbit Vivas had no path to playing time in the major leagues with the Dodgers. Victor Gonzalez likely was going to be the first guy getting DFA'd. So instead of having to DFA him and take the chance of not getting anything back for Victor, you go ahead and you get Trey Sweeney. And why it was such a good deal for the Dodgers is you DFA'd Eddie Leonard last year, and he was your AA shortstop. Yanni Hernandez, free agent. He was your AAA shortstop. Bryson Brigman, he was your other AAA shortstop, free agent. So the only shortstop the Dodgers have from AA on up is Austin Gauthier. So you needed to add depth at the upper levels of your minor leagues at the shortstop spot. You did that with Sweeney while giving away Vivas. Yes, he is highly ranked. This is why we tell you not to look at the prospects list. He is highly ranked, but he had no path to major league playing time with the Dodgers. And Victor Gonzalez was going to get DFA'd most likely.
Yeah, I think with this trade, this is a trade I think that made total sense for the Dodgers. One, going into that trade, you were looking at with Shohei Ohtani and with Joe Kelly, looking at 42 players on your 40-man roster. That couldn't happen, which means they needed to find some sort of avenue in order to get two of the players off of their 40-man roster. Okay, you talk about different avenues where you can do that. You can talk about DFA, which means you essentially risk the chance of losing them for nothing, which with the amount of talent the Dodgers have on their roster, that would have been the case. They would have lost these guys for nothing if they decided to DFA them, or they can look to trade them in a trade package. And what I think they found is I actually think they found a really good deal actually for both teams. So with the Yankees and with the Dodgers. So we'll talk first about the Victor Gonzalez and Yorbit Vivas. Just as a little bit because they have been players that we've watched for years. I know Dodgers fans, if you watch a lot of Los Angeles Dodgers baseball and don't get an opportunity to look at the minor league side, might not necessarily be familiar with a guy like Yorbit Vivas. But as I have mentioned in the past on the show, as I've mentioned in the past on my Twitter accounts, he has been extremely consistent as a baseball player and has such a unique skill set. He's one of those rare guys that has the ability to walk more than he strikes out, something you don't see in today's game. And he provides that with some modest power as well. He's a everyday player. He has been consistently playing every single day. I know he got added to the 40-man roster with Eddie Leonard, who they kind of grew up together during the 2021-2022 offseason, in which case the Dodgers probably didn't want to add them to the 40-man because there didn't end up being a Rule 5 draft with all of the stuff that was happening with the strike in Major League Baseball. But they get added. They've been on there for quite a bit. I got to see him all of 2022 with Great Lakes. Just a really good, consistent hitter that, as you mentioned before, likely was not going to get an opportunity at the big league level. So what the opportunity that Yorbit Vivas is getting is he's getting an opportunity in New York. Yes, a lot of their positions are blocked up right now, and they do have a ton of star power. However, if you look at the Yankees 40-man roster right now, Yorbit Vivas is the only player not projected to make the Major League roster per Fangraphs that is on the Yankees 40-man roster, which means Yorbit Vivas might be one injury away from making his Major League debut with the Yankees, which most certainly with a lot of the moves that the Dodgers are going to make probably was not going to be the case for Yorbit Vivas. Yeah. So he's going to get the opportunity with that. He does have a little bit of power too, which could play into in Yankee Stadium as well. Certainly with his play discipline, with his approach, he's going to provide something that is completely unique for the Yankee lineup. I don't know if there's anything you wanted to add to Yorbit Vivas before we move on to Victor Gonzalez.
I think what you're going to find as you start getting the underlying numbers for Vivas, he does hit the ball very hard. He just doesn't have a very high launch angle. So he hits a lot of really hard, low line drives. So, a lot of times you associate hitting the ball hard with home runs. Those aren't always the same. He does hit the ball very, very hard. Just sometimes, like I said, it just doesn't get in the air enough to be a home run.
Yeah, I think that's certainly the case. And what was so cool this past season about Vivas was he added an element to his game that he hadn't previously taken advantage of. He added the stolen bases last season. He had, 25 stolen bases? He had previously been around 5 stolen bases per year. That is an element to where he realized, hey, I could perhaps take advantage of this a little bit more. And so he was able to utilize that skill set. He has a little bit of defensive versatility, although he's primarily a second baseman. With Mookie Betts being the primary second baseman for the Los Angeles Dodgers, he likely wasn't going to get that opportunity with LA. He is going to get more opportunities, or at least have a better shot at getting opportunities with New York. For that, I am extremely happy for Yorbit Vivas. As much as it hurts me as a fan of this organization, I want these guys to get opportunities. And the same can be said about Victor Gonzalez. Victor Gonzalez, most fans remember the 2020 World Series where he was able to be and have a great performance. It's been a little bit up and down as far as how the Dodgers have utilized him. And this goes with a lot of the bullpen arms where a lot of guys get kind of moved up and moved down throughout the system as far as the express between Oklahoma City and the Los Angeles Dodgers. But with Victor Gonzalez, I think if you look at especially a lot of the underlying numbers last season, I think his numbers actually weren't too bad. And I think if given more of an opportunity, I think he's going to have a chance to actually be able to prove himself. And if you look at the New York Yankees, as far as what they've done this offseason, they offloaded a lot of different pitching. You look at the trade to get Juan Soto, which included a bunch of pitching. You look at some of the other moves that they've met. They have offloaded a lot of pitching, which means that they are going to need depth right there. Victor Gonzalez provides a really good, solid depth piece for them that is right now projected to make their bullpen opening day per Fangraphs. So certainly provides an opportunity for him. I haven't had the chance to see him in person pitch. I know because of his experience, especially in the postseason with the Los Angeles Dodgers, that a lot of fans kind of have a heart for Victor Gonzalez and are rooting for him to succeed over in New York. And I think he's going to get that opportunity with the moves that the Yankees have made. So with the Yankees, it definitely is a win-win, adding those two great pieces from them. And for the Dodgers, getting two players off your 40-man roster and putting them in a position where those players can succeed as well is also a win before we even look at Trey Sweeney and how he fits into the system.
So Trey Sweeney, he's a young man who has fringy athletic ability, good frame, fringy defensive skills. He's going to rate out of the round somewhere around a 50 defensive player. He's a player that made some swing changes to try to add some lift to his game last year. So hopefully those took root. He did a little bit better as far as getting the ball in the air towards the end of last year. This is what's called a projectable player. This is the exact kind of player that the Dodgers like to pick up. They feel like they can add some lift to his swing, get the ball up in the air, and if Trey Sweeney can get the ball up there, hey, maybe he sticks at shortstop, maybe he ends up at third base. I know a lot of people project him probably at third base, but he is the exact kind of projectable type player that you make a tweak here, you make a tweak there. Next thing you know, instead of, maybe the ball being caught by the left fielders, it's a lower line drive, it's a home run over the left field wall. So I think the Dodgers really feel like they can tap into way more power from Trey Sweeney. The defensive side of it, they can live with. He's going to get to play every single game at AAA Oklahoma City at shortstop. I just can't see any other way. That they don't have any other shortstops other than Austin Gauthier, who, as well as I do, Austin, we beat his drum more than anybody. But I think we would both have to admit, as a major leaguer, he probably projects as a second baseman. Would you agree with that? So
yeah, I'd say that more.
I think your next really projectable shortstop, where you say guaranteed to be a shortstop, would be Alex Freeland. And I think even Alex Freeland could end up being a third baseman at the major league level. So you just absolutely had to add depth with Trey Sweeney, and I think they added a really nice player for the amount of projectable tools that he has.
Yeah, and as you mentioned right there is a lot of projection that a guy like Alex Freeland has, which certainly I had the pleasure to be able to watch him grow at the high A level in Great Lakes this past season. But with him, he's likely going to start the season, or you would expect him to start the season in Tulsa.
Correct.
There is still a hole at the shortstop position in AAA Oklahoma City. You could have Austin Gauthier play shortstop, and I think he would do a really fine, solid job with that as well. But I think with Austin Gauthier, I think what this move with adding some sort of shortstop, which we'll get to Trey Sweeney in just a minute as well, I think this is going to allow him to play more second base, to move around more, especially with Vivas. I think he's going to be playing a lot of second base, could potentially play some third base, add a little bit more versatility to his game. We know the Dodgers seem to like having players with some versatility. With the offensive production that Austin Gauthier has, which we've talked about it last year, 150 WRC plus, talk about walk percentage, higher than his strikeout percentage, all of those different numbers. Such a rare season for Austin Gauthier last season, as far as rare being just amazing how good he was. I think this will allow him to kind of move around instead of having to be that primary shortstop every single day. And what you're getting in a Trey Sweeney, you're getting a lot of
the tabloids
upside with him. You're getting a guy who walks quite a bit. You're talking about like a 14% walk percentage with his strikeout percentage around 20-ish%, which is really good numbers looking at them. And you're talking about WRC plus over 100 consistently every single year. Last year in Double-A, it was 118 for the season. You expect that guy to go up to the Triple-A level and see what he's able to do. See if you can tap into a little bit more of that power. I believe the Dodgers can see him perhaps having a little bit more power as well. So with Trey Sweeney, there is a lot of upside, and it fills a position of need. He's also somebody who is not currently needing to be on the 40-man roster, which is absolutely huge for the Dodgers in this role. We've talked about it for quite a while. These spots on the 40-man roster are incredibly valuable. And so if you're taking up a spot and you're not able, or the Dodgers don't have a role for you at the major league level, that is a little bit more of an accurate way to represent that. They want to clear up a lot of those spots, especially because they got Joe Kelly, they got Shohei Ohtani. Obviously, you have to clear spots for them. Trey Sweeney doesn't claim a 40-man roster spot, so that opens up a hole for those guys to fill in. Plus, it fills a need at the minor league level. So overall, with this deal, as much as I think you and I both love the players, Victor Gonzalez and Yorbit Vivas, and we would love to see them succeed in LA. I think they are going to get better opportunities in New York. And in the return, they were able to fill a need as well. I think this trade was a really smart and also a necessary trade for the Los Angeles Dodgers.
Yep, I would totally agree with that. And what I'm actually trying to do here is I'm trying to get up some Trey Sweeney videos so we can take a look at him for quite a bit. So if you would just kind of keep talking, let's go ahead and dive into some of the metrics from today's trade. I know that's probably what everybody's wanting to talk about. The Tyler Glasnow and Manuel Margot for Johnny DeLuca and Ryan Pepio. Go ahead and dive into that, Austin. I'm going to get some Trey Sweeney video up here in just a second.
Yeah, and I'm sure we'll get to Shohei Ohtani in that contract as well. So if you're waiting for the Shohei Ohtani talk, don't worry. We will be getting to that. This is an hour-and-a-half show, so we'll have plenty of time to do that. We'll have plenty of time to get into the comment section as well, which you guys are absolutely phenomenal tonight. But the big news of today has to be the potential trade with the Tampa Bay Rays. Now let's go over the details of what has been rumored right now. Obviously, it's important to know this deal is not official. This deal has not been finalized, but it is something that has been reported, not just by Bruce, but also by a lot of other prominent reporters as well. Ken Rosenthal mentioned about it. It is right now the deal of the terms of the trade seem to indicate, and again, this could change, Tyler Glasnow and Manuel Margot heading to the Los Angeles Dodgers, two players that have had prominent roles for the Tampa Bay Rays, for Ryan Pepio and Johnny DeLuca. Now, let's go ahead and talk about what the Dodgers will be getting in return before we go ahead and talk about Ryan Pepio and Johnny DeLuca. And then we'll kind of give our thoughts as far as whether we would do this trade, whether we think this trade is going to be good for the Dodgers in the short term and long term, all that sort of stuff.
Hey, Austin, before you move on, this is Trey Sweeney here. This is the prospect the Dodgers got back for Victor Gonzalez and Yorbit Vivas. So we're going to show video of Trey Sweeney playing, and you're going to see quite a bit of him as Austin covers this trade.
Yeah, and you want me to continue talking about the Glasnow potential trade?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Yes. Yeah, so with the Rays and with the Dodgers, so the proposed package right now is for Tyler Glasnow, Manuel Margot to go to the Dodgers. Now, what this is signaling from the Dodgers is a continuation of going all in. When Shohei Ohtani and the terms of the deal came out, meaning that he's only going to be making $2 million per season, that is a signal that he wants the team and the organization is going to take an approach of going all in. It is an absolute necessity for the Dodgers to win the World Series. And one of the holes that they absolutely must fill is a frontline starting pitcher. With the trade with the Rays, the understanding of this, or the assumption of this, is that Tyler Glasnow can be one of potentially two frontline starting pitchers that you are going to get from the offseason. Now, why would the Tampa Bay Rays, who have been in contention for a long time, want to deal a Tyler Glasnow? It has everything to do with money, with the way that Tyler Glasnow's contract over the past 2 seasons has been. 2 years, $30 million, only $5 million paid last season, $25 million owed for this upcoming season. For a team like Tampa Bay, they are not looking to keep players when their monetary value goes up. That's not the way that they operate. They look to trade these pieces. So with Tyler Glasnow, they're looking to trade him, as well as Manuel Margot, who's making about $10 million off of their books in order to save some money, be able to operate at a little bit of a lower payroll. With Tyler Glasnow, he is an extremely good pitcher. Let's go ahead and point that out right there. He only has 1 year left on his deal, but he has for years shown signs of being a frontline, top of the line starting pitcher. With Glasnow, you are getting a guy that, if you believe in a lot of the numbers, such as expected FIP, Sierra, some of the more projectable numbers, he has been extremely consistent with those numbers. You look at his xFIP. Let's just look over the past 5 seasons. 2.94, 2.75, 2.7, 2.57, 2.75. Extremely consistent as far as his expected numbers are concerned. Look at his Sierra numbers, really similar to that as well. So he has, in terms of what you project, has been a very consistent pitcher, and it's because he's able to generate a ton of strikeouts. You're talking about a strikeout percentage at around 35-ish%, walk percentage a little bit under 8%. He's able to strike out a lot of guys because of his electric stuff, and he is reasonably able to limit some of the walks. He has been for years known to have this electric stuff. The issue with Tyler Glasnow has been his health. He has not been able to stay healthy at the big league level. You talk about him, you look at some of the games he started. Let's look at over that exact same span. Games started 12, 11, 14, 2, and 21 over the past 5 seasons. Brings a little bit of concern. The hope with a Tyler Glasnow, I would say, is not necessarily the idea that you are going to get a guy that is going to fill a bunch of innings during the regular season. I don't think that is the goal with the Tyler Glasnow. I think the goal with the Glasnow is that he is going to have that electric stuff in combination with a lot of the pitching coaches, the great pitching coaches that the Dodgers have. They're going to be able to work with Tyler Glasnow to help him be able to unlock some stuff and be ready for the postseason. Again, the season is all about winning the World Series. Once they went all in with Shohei Ohtani and with the deal that he structured, it's all about winning the World Series. Mm-hmm. Tyler Glasnow is a pitcher that they believe can help them win the World Series. Now, a counter argument has to do with his postseason ERA, and that is a very valid concern. He has not been good in the postseason. 5.7 ERA, something like that, in 45 innings pitched. Certainly
5.4, yeah. His whip's been 149 and 45.2 innings.
Which a lot of that has to do with when he faced in the World Series with the Dodgers in 2020, which he will not have to do if this trade goes down. But still, that
he'll have to play the Yankees.
Yeah, if they meet the Yankees in the World Series. But that is certainly an absolutely valid concern to have. He has not been a performer in the playoffs in the past. Will he be a playoff performer going forward? So that goes down to, do you put more trust into what he's been able to do in the larger sample size during the regular season, or do you trust what he has done in the sample size during the postseason where the environment is a little bit different? That comes to an organizational philosophy, or it could go down to the individual player as well. With Glasnow, the expectation for him is going to be that he's going to act as one of those two number one type starting pitchers that you get during the offseason. I don't think you get Glasnow and expect, okay, that's the number one starter that we get. He obviously is not going to be, I wouldn't expect him to pitch 30 games during the season. I would expect him to kind of have his innings limited so that he can be ready for the postseason, similar to a plan perhaps like a Walker Buehler might be on during this upcoming season. So that is one of the players that they could potentially be getting in a Tyler Glasnow. I don't know if you had any additional thoughts about him before we go on to Margot.
The only thing I don't like about that is that you're trading your depth and part of your really good depth. If you actually evaluate Ryan Pepiot last year and the opportunities he was given, he was better than Tyler Glasnow. Now, I'm not stupid. I know that Tyler Glasnow has had when he's not been injured, he's been good. So that matters as far as the experience goes at the major league level. And Pepiot only, I think he had 42 innings last year, so I get it. I understand all that. But you didn't add depth is what I'm trying to say. Part of what you needed in the pitching staff is depth. Yes, you did need a number one starter. Yes, you do need a number one starter. It's not guaranteed that Glasnow will be a number one starter. It's not guaranteed he'll be healthy. You have a track record of that not happening. And it's not guaranteed he'll be better than the guy you're trading him for because he wasn't last year. And then also, it's damn sure not guaranteed that the guy that's going to be replacing Ryan Pepiot in the rotation, whoever that is, will be as good as Ryan Pepiot. So it's not necessarily as much the way that you like to look at this is Ryan Pepiot for Tyler Glasnow. Really how you need to be looking at this is when you're looking at what you're left with depth, Walker Buehler is not going to be able to pitch a full season. You're not going to have May. You're not going to have Gonsolin, right? How you really have to evaluate this, in my opinion, is Ryan Pepiot better than the guy that's going to take his place in the 3 or 4 slot in the rotation? Now what? So now you're left with a hole at the back of your rotation, or you're left with prospects that haven't proven it like Ryan Pepiot has, and you're doing it for a guy that might end up being injured because he has that track record. And then, okay, even if everything does work out, Austin, Walker Buehler is going to be a free agent after this year. Dustin May, who in the heck knows what's going to happen with him? Who knows what's going to happen with Gonsolin, right? And then Glasnow's gone. So after this year, what are you left with then?
Yeah, and I think those are
So here
all...
you have Shohei Ohtani, and you have this window to win 4 or 5 world titles, and in 2025, you're going to be left with your best pitchers being Bobby Miller and Emmett Sheehan.
Yeah, and I think those are all incredibly valid points, and we're going to kind of get into them. So I think it's fair to look at this instead of looking at the entire trade package. Let's look at Glasnow versus Pepiot, because I think there's a lot of different things to consider, and we'll kind of dive into all of them.
The numbers are on the screen on the board there.
Yes, and numbers are, I believe, on the screen right now. With Ryan Pepiot, what you are getting and what we have seen is we've seen a ton of growth. He's a friend to the channel. I know Casey has done several interviews with him, gotten to know him, but it's more than that. It's more the production and the growth that we got to see with Ryan Pepiot through the course of this past season. He's one of those guys who was injured through part of this season and really showed when he was able to come back just an immense amount of potential. We saw this stuff. We saw the production that he was able to have. He was probably the second, maybe, best pitcher going into the postseason this past season. Obviously, they did not utilize Ryan Pepiot, and that causes immense frustration for us, for Dodgers fans as well. With Ryan Pepiot, he has a ton of potential. You saw the electric stuff that he has. You also saw the success and the growth that he had. He had a 2.14 ERA this past season. He has so many years of club control. All of these make him such an incredibly valuable piece. Now, All of this is absolutely true. Now I'm going to try to bring a little bit of the counter argument, not to downplay Ryan Pepio as well at all.
Oh, understood. Yes,
And I'll
absolutely.
prevent kind of my evaluation after this, but I'm going to just try to present some of the concerns that you might possibly
We're going to
have
cover
right
all
now.
the sides here. I'm going to give the prospect side. We're going to kind of both give both sides, right?
Yeah, and I think the first aspect that you have to look at with a Ryan Pepio has to do with some of the underlying numbers last year, perhaps indicating some form of regression.
Which ones?
And again, this is not something that will happen. This is some of the numbers that might happen, and you have to look at some of the numbers like FIP and XFIP. His ERA last year, 2.14. Phenomenal. His FIP and XFIP were 4.18 and 3.99. That doesn't mean that he's going to have those as his ERA next season. That just indicates that the 2.14 ERA probably will go up at least a little bit, and that's a little bit backed up by his batting average and balls in play being 189. That is well below league average. You would expect that perhaps to go a little bit closer to league average. So if you're looking just at those numbers, there is an indication that there potentially could be some regression for next season.
Well, hell yeah, he had a 2.14 ERA. I mean, my God, you would expect regression from that if you was a all-star pitcher, right? So let me ask you this: if he went to league average on batting average against, his batting average against is 179. Let's say that bumps up to league average. Okay, he starts at a 2.14 ERA. What does that bump that up to?
I think that would bump it up closer into more of the 3.5 to 4-ish range. Okay. Somewhere closer to where his FIP and XFIP is.
His expected ERA this year was 3.25.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's more comprehensive than FIP and XFIP, my opinion.
Yeah, and there's certainly some opinions that you can have as far as what is the most predictive statistic. And with a guy like Ryan and with all of this, you kind of have to take all of this into mind. And this kind of brings in the next evaluation as far as what the Dodgers were planning on doing with a guy like a Ryan Pepio. I think with a Ryan Pepio, with him in your rotation, again, he has not been traded as of this moment to the Tampa Bay Rays. Right. So he is still part of the Dodgers organization. So you would, as a part of the Dodgers organization, expect him to be able to provide some innings. Last year, the Dodgers were a team that was severely lacking during the regular season of innings pitched because of the injuries, because of some circumstances. They were severely lacking innings for a lot of those pitchers. I think with Ryan Pepio, I think he is a much better bet than a Tyler Glasnow to provide innings during the regular season for the Los Angeles Dodgers. So that brings into question, okay, for the regular season, he might provide more innings. He is going to be under team control for another 4 or 5 plus years. So there certainly is a lot of value for that. So then the question becomes, what is his role going to be in the postseason? And that is where you kind of get to a little bit of a stop. Again, we'll talk about how you're going to fill the innings in just a minute. But in the postseason, the Dodgers, at least last year, you can talk about it, loyalty to some of the veterans. You can talk about it, them expecting Lance Lynn. The Dodgers decided not to utilize Ryan Pepio in the postseason in Game 3, even though he was your most available. He was the most ready starter to go in the playoffs. In a must-win game, he was the hottest pitcher. Dodgers didn't utilize him out of the bullpen. They didn't utilize him at all. So what would his role be, assuming that you add 2 frontline starting pitchers to a playoff roster? You'd have Walker Buehler, you'd have Bobby Miller, assuming that both of those guys are healthy, and you'd have 2 guys on your starting pitcher. Let's say it's Tyler Glasnow, and let's say somehow the Dodgers get Yamamoto. Where is Ryan Pepio going to fit into that mix? Yeah, where's Ryan Pepio going to fit into that mix? That is where there becomes very serious question as far as the impact that Ryan Pepio will have in the playoffs. Again, the goal is not to win the regular season. The Dodgers would be champions of the regular season over the past 10 plus years. The goal is to win in the postseason. The goal is to win in the playoffs. Does Tyler Glasnow give you the better shot over Ryan Pepiot? That is where the argument can be had. That is something that that is something that the Dodgers have to decide because they have not
who does that
seen
favor.
And that is something that the Dodgers have to question, because Tyler Glasnow does not have the greatest postseason success, but he has postseason experience. With Ryan Pepiot, he has not been given the shot for that. Whether that's not his fault at all. I'm not trying to indicate that any of this is wrong for Ryan Pepiot. He has not been given that shot. But with that, do you see the upside of that Tyler Glasnow has had, which you have seen for years, better than the upside that Ryan Pepiot has? That is where the debate and that is where the question is. Also taking into account the value of Ryan Pepiot's length versus Tyler Glasnow. He only has 1 year. That's why there's a lot of question. That's why there's a lot of speculation about this trade, particularly in the pitching aspect. You look for Tyler Glasnow. Do you believe he is a number one type starter? Or do you look at a Ryan Pepiot who is a phenomenal pitcher and I think has potential to be towards the top of your rotation, a 2, a 3 type starter? He has enormous potential and is under team control. Which one do you value more? And then the question becomes, how do you feel a lot of the innings if you go ahead and make this trade? Because you would expect with Tyler Glasnow versus Ryan Pepiot, a lot of those innings would be left behind. And I think this comes down to, 2 options that the Dodgers would have for this. One, I think, is something that we have been kind of hoping for, is that the guys that you have in your system, the Emmett Sheehan, the Gavin Stone, the Nick Frasso, the Landon Knack, the River Ryan, all of those guys would get opportunities and would have innings available at the big league level. Or what I think could be potentially more likely, as much as I would disagree with this, the Dodgers could be looking for not just 2 starting pitchers, being Glasnow and another front line, but potentially a third as well, to be more of an innings eater type. So they would have 2 different options to fill in some of the innings gap that is being left with Glasnow and Pepiot. So all of this into consideration, I think there is certainly a lot to think about, and I think there's certainly a difference in preference that you could have, whether you are a big fan of Tyler Glasnow, his stuff, his upside, and how he could help provide you with the best chance to win in 2024. Or if you look at Ryan Pepiot, who I think arguably has more value than Tyler Glasnow. That's certainly my opinion because of the value, the length that he provides, the stuff that he has, the upside that you saw with him last season, even though I do expect some regression from that. I think this is where the debate gets had as far as Glasnow versus Pepiot. And I'd love to hear a little bit more of your thoughts on this particular topic.
Yeah, no doubt about it. We'll get into them, and I'll have you read them here in just a second. Okay, so kind of, 2022, he was a AAA All-Star. His ERA was 2.56. His WHIP was 107. His average against was 193. So here's his average against since he's been in the organization. 2019, 181. 2021, of which he jumped 2 levels. That was definitely his worst year in minor league baseball. Still, his average against was only 222. WHIP 129 is not great, but for the type of year that it was, kind of an interesting transition for him. He was making some changes. The WHIP was 129. Okay, so 181, 193, and then this year at the major league level, his average against was sub 200 again. So you can say that I'm expecting regression, right? That's fine. But his average against throughout his entire career including at the major leagues, has always been like this. Okay, his ability to not have people square him up and not hit him hard has been that way. See, average against, I just said that again. It has been this way every year that he has gone. Other than like a 3-month stretch in 2021, this dude has been elite all the way up and down through the organization. He was a big-time prospect, and then he was a big-time pitcher for the Dodgers last year. And so I'm just a little bit confused as to where the disconnect is with Ryan Pepio in terms of why Dodgers fans don't think that he could be that postseason starter that can go out and be just as good as Tyler Glasnow.
Yeah, I think a lot of that.
But hold on, by the way, just 2 years ago, okay?
Yeah.
Now, he lost the changeup in 2022. We all agree with that, right? It had too much fade to it. I actually talked to him about it. Okay, but 2 years ago, Will Rhymes, okay, who knows a lot more about this than we do, said that Ryan Pepio's changeup wasn't the best changeup in the system. It was the best pitch in the entire system. Okay, and then last year, he added more depth to it, less fade. He got it back. He added the more bullet-type slider, changed the shapes of his slider, changed his body, accessed the strike zone better, and he was simply elite with the chances that he gave. So I'm a little bit baffled. And also, let me say this, okay? And I'm going to give you an example. When you cover these prospects, Austin, you know this. You talk to them, you talk to their parents, you sit in the stands with their grandparents, with their nephews, with their nieces. You sit there and you watch their family interact with each other. They talk to you. They buy you a beer, that kind of stuff, right? That's what happens with us, okay? So you do get attached to these guys. And so a lot of people would say, yeah, well, that's why you're defending Ryan Pepio. No, actually, it's the exact opposite. What you actually want for these guys is to make the major leagues. You actually root for them. You get to root for them. And I hate to say this. I hope this doesn't sound wrong or whatever. You actually end up rooting for them more than you actually do the Dodgers. In other words, if it comes down to Ryan Pepio making the major leagues and it's not going to be at the Dodgers, I want him gone. I want him gone tomorrow. Does that make sense to you? Mm-hmm. So if like Yorbit Vivas or like a Jordan Leisure or Nick Robertson, I was ecstatic when those guys got traded. Just go back to my interview with Jake Pilarski. Hell, I'm still talking about Jordan Leisure. Still love the guy, and I'm still super pumped about the guy. And I still think he's a great pitcher, right? So this doesn't come from a spot that, I'm a prospect hugger in the sense that I just want to keep all the prospects for the Dodgers. That's the exact opposite. If they don't have a path with the Dodgers, I want them gone that day. I have been preaching that, banging that drum with Michael Bush all year long. I banged that drum with Yorbit Vivas about 2 shows ago. This just simply comes from a perspective that I just don't think he's getting his due with the Dodgers. It's just kind of interesting to me. Having said that, super excited the Dodgers are all in. If Andrew Friedman wanted to come out and say, hey, we like Tyler Glasnow because we think he's that number one, and by God, we're all in and we're trying to win 4 world championships in the next 5 years, I'm going to have a party and have a hell of a good time. Did I make any sense what I just said?
Oh, absolutely. And I absolutely express a lot of that sentiment. Look, you and I, Casey and I, are not from Los Angeles. We get the opportunity to be able to meet with a lot of these players. I get the opportunity to see the players over in Great Lakes. Casey gets the opportunity to see a lot of these guys over in Oklahoma City, over in Tulsa. So we get the unique perspective of watching these guys grow up and becoming fans of these guys, all of the guys in the organization as they grow up. Minor League Baseball is an incredibly difficult sport, and Major League Baseball is an incredibly difficult sport to crack, especially in an organization like the Dodgers. So with these guys, if they're going to get better opportunities elsewhere, I think that is a great thing. And I think if the Tampa Bay Rays, who are an extremely analytically run and smart organization, want you, that says much about the talent that you have. And with Orion Pepio, with a Johnny DeLuca, which we will get into Manuel Margot versus Johnny DeLuca coming up, I think that shows just how much talent each one of these guys has. You mentioned it earlier, some of the numbers that have stayed consistent for Orion Pepio. And I think that goes into some of the debates that you would have as far as the most predictive statistics, or looking at a lot of these numbers and knowing that these numbers are not 100% predictive. In fact, they're always seem to be not very good at predicting. Some are better than predicting at others, but there could be different variation that each one of these players has. I think you mentioned that with Ryan Pepio, and I think you also mentioned just the immense talent as far as his stuff goes. I'm sure he said that back during a time when you had obviously all the talent in the system, with the Gavin Stones, with the Emmett Sheehan, with the Kyle Hurt, with even when Bobby Miller was back in there, to say that Ryan Pepio's changeup is the best pitch in the organization.
I didn't say that. Will Rhymes said that.
Yes, and and that's coming for somebody who knows this organization inside and out. So that just says so much about how talented Ryan Pepio is. However, there is an understanding that the Dodgers absolutely must capitalize on the opportunity that Shohei Ohtani has provided with the contract structure that he has given the Los Angeles Dodgers. If Tyler Glasnow, they believe, helps put you over the top, and if Ryan Pepio was not going to have much of a role or a future, if he was going to be some of that depth piece, if he's going to bounce between AAA and major leagues, I want him to be part of an organization where he's going to be able to succeed. And so if that is the case, if the Dodgers weren't going to have a role, I'd want him to be on the Dodgers first. But if he's going to get a better opportunity in Tampa Bay, I think that is going to be best for him.
Yeah, hey, if he makes Tampa Bay better, he gets a better chance in Tampa Bay. Same with Johnny DeLuca. And then the Dodgers get better at the same time. Hallelujah, man. That is a win-win. Everybody is celebrating. Trust me on that deal. Here's kind of an example of what I'm talking about. I put out a tweet about 10 minutes before we went on. It says, when covering prospects, you talk to them many times, their parents, their family, and all. So you become a huge fan of them. That becomes 100% separate of your Dodgers fandom, because all you want is the best path for them to the major leagues, either that being with the Dodgers or not. Okay, I only say that to say, you know who the second person to like that video or that comment was?
Who's that?
Carson Taylor's mother.
Yeah.
Guess where Carson Taylor's at now?
He's with the Philadelphia Phillies as a part of the minor league baseball Rule 5 draft.
Because we're celebrating the fact that Carson Taylor got an opportunity with the Phillies. He was never going to get an opportunity with the Dodgers, correct? You want to know who the third person to like that was?
Who's that?
Gus Varlin's girlfriend. Okay, and I say that only to say Gus Varlin got picked up in the Rule 5 draft last year, and I celebrated like a son of a bitch when he got drafted, because it was like, he ain't never making it up with the Dodgers this year. He's going to get put on the 20. I mean, it was a celebration. It was like, hell yeah, man. Let's go, Gus. I mean, it didn't matter if he was with the Dodgers or not. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, I mean, that when I say that is absolutely not lip service. The last thing I want to do is hold on to guy. So, really, we're evaluating from this, does this actually help the Dodgers capitalize on having Shohei Ohtani? Because here's my problem. If you just don't panic, okay, you got Shohei, you got Freddie, you got Mookie at the prime, okay, here's where I don't want to be left with. I don't want to be left with Walker Buehler has Scott Boras as an agent, correct? He's a free agent after this year. Tyler Glasnow, if he has a good year, he's going to be ridiculously expensive, right? Okay, so you're not going to have him. And then Dustin May, God knows what he's going to come back like, right? You might not have him. You might not have Tony Gonsolin ever again, right? I mean, he's been in. So here you are with Shohei Ohtani. Here you are with Freddie Freeman and Mookie Betts in their prime. And what is your pitching staff going into 2025?
Yeah, and that is of serious question.
That's my concern.
Especially if the Dodgers are not able to give a lot of these younger pitchers the time and ability to grow at the major league level so that they could be ready for the 2025 season. I think that is definitely a need that you have. So you have to look at some of the arms and who are you going to have a role for, not just in 2024, but in 2025. I think the expectation because this trade has not been finalized is that Ryan Pepiot would be one of those guys, or at least he would have prime opportunity to be one of those guys that, if this trade goes down, won't be the case. So with that, you're going to have to go and make a decision as an organization as far as who you want to prioritize and who are you actually going to give opportunities to succeed. If Ryan Pepiot wasn't going to have long-term opportunities, both during the regular season and in the postseason, we've seen him not get the opportunity at the postseason, then I think he is better served in another organization where he can actually have success in that organization. And I think he would be best utilized with that. And then you could have the Nick Frasso, the Emmett Sheehan kind of fill that role that the Kyle Hurt, all of these different guys fill the role that Ryan Pepiot has filled in, and be able to get some of that major league experience. So there's certainly that aspect to have. And then it comes down to the thought that you have to capitalize and you have to take it almost
this
1 year at a time.
For what window?
I think right now, I think because of the window that Shohei Ohtani has created, every single year you have to do everything in your power to capitalize. If Tyler Glasnow is going to help you win this next season, then you have to go all in for next season. You also have to think about the future as well, and you will get to the rotation in 2025. Shohei, you can expect at least a little bit to be part of that rotation. You expect to add some other number one starting pitcher. You expect growth from Bobby Miller. There are certainly arms in the system that can help, even though that there is certainly concerns about the depth for the future. However, you have to be thinking about what is going to help your team for the 2024 season, as far as what's going to help you win a championship and what role are these individuals going to play when helping you win that 2024. You can have an argument that you think Ryan Pepiot would be better both long-term and the short-term for Tyler Glasnow. I think that's certainly an argument to be had. That's going to be a decision that the Dodgers have to make. Do they think Tyler Glasnow is going to help them in 2024 more than a Ryan Pepiot would over the long term of his career? But that is not the only players that were involved in this proposed trade.
Before we move on to the next two,
okay,
I just think with this window getting Ohtani, you're probably going to get Yamamoto, right? I really think. Yeah, that's a whole nother deal.
There's certainly a lot of buzz about that. There's going to be fierce competition. I know the Yankees want him really bad, so we'll see exactly what happens with that. But there's an expectation that they'll get another frontline starting pitcher. Yeah.
So you're going to get your number one starter. Okay, so who better to be like a number four starter than Pepiot, right? That's kind of what I'm saying. But also what I'm saying is, I think if you prioritize Ryan Pepiot, Kyle Hurt, Emmett Sheehan, Nick Frasso in the next 2 or 3 years, I think you're looking at winning 4 or 5 world titles with Shohei Ohtani, Freddie Freeman, Mookie Betts. But if you get impatient and you start dealing all these guys away, the next thing you know, Tyler Glasnow is always hurt, and you don't. I think you're looking at actually shrinking the amount of window you have to actually win world championships. I mean, really, man. Nick Frasso, that dude's fastball is, you can say it's not, he hadn't thrown the major, that's fine, and I can't argue with that. But, I mean, metrics are metrics. I mean, it's the best fastball in the organization, probably, right? So, kind of all I'm saying is, you know, if you go get like a Yamamoto or whatever, then you prioritize Ryan Pepiot, you prioritize Nick Frasso, you prioritize Bobby Miller, you prioritize Emmett Sheehan, and then you prioritize Kyle Hurt in whatever piggyback role, whatever, you know, spot starter role. And then you still have River Ryan, Gavin Stone, Landon Ack to do whatever you need to do. I just think if you go that route in the next 6 or 7 years, you're liable to win four world titles. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think that certainly is an argument. I think the only counter argument that you would, or the only couple of counter arguments that you would make with that somebody might present is one, the lack of major league experience. I think that certainly plays at least a little bit of an aspect as far as what you could expect. We know that jump from the minor leagues to the major league.
But three of those guys already have major league experience.
Yes, and I believe that each one of these guys can take that step and become really good major league pitchers. The other argument, and I think it's a little bit more valid argument, would be the argument that there is not going to be enough innings or enough roles for all of these elite starting pitchers that you have towards the top of your system. It's going to be very difficult to find innings at the major league level for all of Nick Frasso, Landon Knack, Emmett Sheehan, Gavin Stone, all of these guys, Ryan Pepio, Kyle Hurt, and also provide innings for a Walker Buehler, for a Bobby Miller, for a Shohei Ohtani, for a Yoshinobu Yamamoto. That's where it becomes very crowded to have all of these guys who are ready at the same time be able to make it to the major league. So then it comes down to, okay, do we keep all of these guys for depth?
Oh, no.
Because we know that there's going to be injuries, and keep them at the AAA level? I don't think that is the best for each one of those players at all. I'd much rather these guys have success and be able to get opportunities at the major league level, even if that is not with the Los Angeles Dodgers. So I think with this, I think you're dealing with almost a clog towards the top of the Dodgers system with a lot of these pitchers and limited opportunities and limited willingness to give a lot of these pitchers the length in order to succeed. So I think with that, you are going to have to, for some of these guys, probably involve them in some type of trade just to provide them the opportunity that they need to succeed at the big league level, which I think both you and I want them to do. And so it comes down to who exactly do you target if you decide to move on and actually make sure that these guys get opportunities at the big league level, and who do you prioritize as far as your future for the next 4 or 5 years to win multiple World Series, to be part of that rotation. I think that is the counter argument to that, to where there's just so many guys towards the top of the system with that it is kind of crowding out the depth that the Dodgers have in the starting pitching.
So trade the guys that don't have major league experience. The Rays won't take. I mean, Tyler Glasnow, they're either, okay, surely they're going to learn from what the Angels did, right? I mean, the Angels could have traded Shohei Ohtani, right?
Mm-hmm.
They didn't, correct?
Yes.
So what happened?
They basically lost him for the whatever draft pick that they might get.
Okay. So for every day that ticks off the calendar, Tyler Glasnow is one day closer to the Rays getting nothing for him, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So for every day that ticks off, the Dodgers gain leverage, the Rays lose leverage. So at some point, that's going to tilt to where you don't have to give up your major league ready arms. That's my whole point.
And that is certainly an argument to do that. The one thing
it's December.
It is December, but also the necessity for starting pitching, especially right now across Major League Baseball, is really big. There are a lot of teams looking for starting pitching and looking for frontline starting pitching. So I think right now that certainly would be the case if the Dodgers were one of the only teams looking for a Tyler Glasnow. There are a lot of teams bidding for Tyler Glasnow, which means that demand is really high for a guy like a Tyler Glasnow, meaning the price that you're going to have to pay for Tyler Glasnow is going to be a premium, even though there's 1 year left, even though a lot of indications seem to say you shouldn't have to give up your major league ready arms. That might be what you have to do. You're going to probably have to overpay in order to get starting pitching, especially starting pitching that is or has the potential to be elite starting pitching. So I think that certainly is playing an aspect in this market.
So if you're the Rays and you want to trade Tyler Glasnow, you're a very smart organization, which means that every time that you get a guy that's 29, 30 years old and he's getting ready to cash in, you trade him off for a younger Ryan Pepio, right? That's just what the Rays do. I mean, they just trade their older guys and they get younger guys. Then they recycle it through, and then as soon as Ryan Pepio gets to be 29 years old and he's getting ready to be a free agent, then they trade him. That's exactly how the Rays do business, right?
Yes.
So if you're Tampa Bay, you're going to trade Tyler Glasnow unless you have a chance to win a World Series, right? So if you're going to trade Tyler Glasnow, who are you going to get a better return from? What organization? I mean, the Dodgers have every single position. I mean, if you want a catcher, okay, well, we got Diego Cartaya. If you want an outfielder, okay, we got Johnny DeLuca. All right, if you want a pitcher, well, we got 17 of them, right? I mean, so if you know you're going to trade Tyler Glasnow, who better to do trade business with than the Dodgers? I just think the Dodgers have the position of leverage here. They don't have to give up a guy who had a 2.14 ERA last year. And they don't have to do it for Manuel Margot, who, if you look at him and Johnny DeLuca, we'll get into that here in a second, was not even better than Johnny DeLuca at the major league level last year. I mean, literally, Ryan Pepio, just looking at even the underlying numbers, Austin, Ryan Pepio was better than Tyler Glasnow last year. Even looking at the underlying numbers, Johnny DeLuca was better than Manuel Margot last year at the major league level. Looking at even the traditional numbers, batting average and all that, and the underlying numbers, those are both facts. Now, I get it, track record and all that. So if you want to come at me and say, well, they don't have the track record, fine, that is 100% correct. I can't disagree with that. But kind of what I'm saying is, right now, you don't have to make that trade. You can get a better situation if you're the Dodgers if you just hold out a bit longer.
Yeah, I think that certainly is an argument, especially when we look at Manuel Margot versus a guy like a Johnny DeLuca. So with this trade that is proposed, again, I will keep reiterating this deal has not been finalized. This deal can still take various
By
forms.
the way,
So
congratulations to Bruce Kuntz. He does a wonderful job covering prospects. He is just simply a rock star. Congratulations to him. He did just a wonderful job on this. And by the way, once he tweeted it, I knew it had to be real because, and I know there were some people, hey, trust me, if Bruce puts it out, it is the real deal. This guy's the real deal.
Yeah, no, and he does a absolutely phenomenal job covering a lot of the guys within the Dodgers system as well. He is very connected with the organization. Does an absolute phenomenal job. So then what the trade comes down to has to do with Manuel Margot for Johnny DeLuca. You're getting an outfielder for an outfielder. With Manuel Margot, you're getting a guy who has a 2-year 1 year kind of contract, about $10 million, with a mutual option for next season. He has been in the major leagues for 8 years or so. Not necessarily an offensive juggernaut. He has been, if just looking at some of the WRC plus numbers, he has been in his career about a 90 WRC plus player, which, especially if you look at outfield,
it's on your screen right there.
Yeah, outfield being a little bit more, you want it to be a little bit more about 103, 104, 105 as far as the normal WRC plus for an outfielder. There's certainly a little bit more to be desired as far as the offensive production is concerned. He's one of those guys, though, who doesn't necessarily strike out a whole lot. You're talking about 15, 16, 17, 18% as far as his strikeout percentage, which certainly is a pleasant surprise for the Dodgers. Again, we'll get to Johnny DeLuca in just a second to bring some of the counter arguments. He doesn't necessarily walk a whole lot as well. Has limited but kind of modest power. With him, I think he's one of those guys who, in the past, not necessarily this past season, in the past has been a defensive outfielder, so you would expect something like that.
Not basically, as much last year. I think some people project that he can't even play center field anymore. I think they're projecting him at a corner.
Yes, and I think with that you would have James Outman being the everyday center fielder. So then I think you can have him, if needed, to fill in with center field, but mostly play one of the corner positions.
So take this for what it's worth, but his defensive metrics, the advanced analytics on his defense last year, he was a negative 2.7, so he was 2.7% below the league average defensively.
Yeah, and with that,
take that with a grain of salt, or however you want to take that. But that's the advanced.
That's also backed up by like outs above average.
Right.
Had him at a little bit below league average as far as a defensive component.
So the defensive part of it wasn't good last year. It just wasn't for him. He's been a good defender in the past, not last year though.
Yes. And yeah, so Manuel Margot, he has had a lot of major league experience, but you kind of know the ceiling that you are getting with a guy like Emmanuel Margot. His best season as far as WRC plus is concerned was in 2022, where he posted a 105. He had a 2.4 WAR season according to Fangraphs in 2021. There certainly is a little bit of value there, and I think the component of him not striking out is something that is very positive. The question or the debate that is being had right now is whether he is more valuable than a guy like a Johnny DeLuca, which I know you have covered him a lot. I have had the opportunity to watch him play a lot when he was with Great Lakes. Johnny DeLuca is one of the more underrated players within this system. He has been for quite a while. He's starting to get a little bit more notoriety for just how good of a player he is. And Dodgers fans only got a small taste of how good Johnny DeLuca is last season. Obviously, the first thing that pops up in my mind and a lot of Dodgers fans' mind are those two amazing plays that he made in Texas, in center field, in the outfield. But it's more than that. He has so many components to his game that are extremely good. For one, you talk about Manuel Margot kind of limiting the strikeouts. Johnny DeLuca is just as good as Emmanuel Margot, or at least he has proven in the minor leagues to be just as good with his strikeout percentage as Emmanuel Margot. You talk about walk percentage. Johnny DeLuca is a little bit better in his walk percentage. That's going to range a little bit instead of being the 5.
This is at the major league level.
Yes. And
last year.
Yes. And that is going to be a little bit closer towards the, I would expect 7, 8, 9% as far as his walk percentages. He also has a ton of power in his swing. You look at last season across major leagues, minor leagues, he had 19 home runs. You look at 2022, he had 25 home runs in the minor leagues. There is a lot of pop in his swing. You look at a lot of his ISO numbers consistently above league average, and also in a component that's a little bit more analytically driven, which is not true for almost all players. His ISO is better than his strikeout percentage, meaning there is more power and there's a good balance between power and how much he strikes out. You look at some of the other aspects to his game. He provides a lot of speed. I know you've mentioned a lot of him as far as him doing track and being super athletic. He's great defensively. There is a ton to like about Johnny DeLuca. So the question becomes Manuel Margot, who you will have for 1, maybe 2 seasons, or 4 or 5 or 6 years of a Johnny DeLuca who could potentially have more upside. He has not had the major league experience that Emmanuel Margot has had. How much do you value that over the upside that we believe Johnny DeLuca has? You look at his WRC plus, just going back to 2022 at high A, 133. At double A in 2022,
league average is 100, so he's 33% above league average.
Yes. 2023 and in double A, 150, and triple A, 125. At the big leagues, in 45 plate appearances, 102. I believe Johnny DeLuca can be a very solid, productive player for the Los Angeles Dodgers or whatever organization that he is going to be a part of, or he's going to be a really good baseball player and provide really dynamic skill set defensively, speed-wise, offensively with his power and with his plate discipline. There's a reason why the Dodgers decided to protect him from the Rule 5 draft last season. I think he's going to do some great things. And this becomes the debate of Manuel Margot versus Johnny DeLuca. For me, I think it's a pretty easy call. I would much rather have Johnny DeLuca for the next 5-6 years versus 1 year of Manuel Margot.
I would rather have 1 year of Johnny DeLuca than 1 year of Manuel Margot. I think he's a better player right now.
Mm-hmm. And there certainly is more upside, especially because you look at the age, you look at some of the age curves. Manuel Margot, he is 28, 29, 30, somewhere in that range. You don't expect the decline of his career, but you expect some of the potential growth in a Johnny DeLuca, who right now is 25, 26. He's 25 right now. So you expect some sort of growth for him throughout the season. I guess the question would become, would they be able to give Johnny DeLuca enough plate appearances at the major league level in order for him to develop and grow to the player that he wants? Because I think just given these players individually, you talk about 1 year versus 4 or 5, or even just 1 versus 1. I think at least Casey and I would agree, Johnny DeLuca, we would much rather have that. Are the Dodgers going to provide enough opportunities for him? I think the plan right now, again, the trade has not been finalized, is that Johnny DeLuca would be that platoon with a Jason Hayward / would play left field as well, kind of mix and match a lot of that. So we think he would certainly get a lot of playing time. But this is the part of the deal that I question the decision-making most, because I think Johnny DeLuca is a much more valuable piece and a better player than a Manuel Margot at this stage of their careers, and with thinking about the projection of what they can be.
Keep talking about Johnny DeLuca and some of his stolen bases, Austin.
Yeah, so Johnny DeLuca, I mean, you talk about him. He is one of those players that, man, he has so many different aspects to his game, power included, but also with the stolen bases as well. So you're looking at 2021, he had 20 stolen bases between low A and high A. In 2022, he had, 26, or no, that was 17 stolen bases. Sorry, doing some addition, different rows in my head. And then 2023, he had 13 stolen bases. There is stolen base potential right there. There's a possibility of Johnny DeLuca being a 20 home run, 20 stolen base type hitter in the Major League Baseball. That, I think, is some of the upside that you could see from a guy like Johnny DeLuca, because he has done it in the past. Obviously, making the transition to the major league level is very difficult. There are no givens with that. However, with the skill set that he has, and because he has performed well above the competition at the level he has been presented at, I think there is some sort of expectation that a lot of those skills are going to be able to translate over to the big league level. So I absolutely love the upside that a guy like a Johnny DeLuca has, and I think he would have an immense and great role on the team. And again, like we mentioned before, the Rays are a very advanced analytical organization, and they are very smart as far as who they target. I know a couple of years ago, as a fan being here in the state of Michigan of the Tigers, I was pretty excited about getting Austin Meadows, and we had to give up Isaac Paredes. That trade turned out really good as far as the aspect for the Rays, because Isaac Paredes turned out, the Rays were able to unlock a lot of stuff with him. They saw a lot of upside with him. And I think with a guy like a Johnny DeLuca, this is something that Twitter account Rays Metrics pointed out, and something that I retweeted on my Twitter. If we're looking at for minor leaguers over the past 2 seasons, 2022 and 2023, who have 600 plate appearances, so that's just setting a baseline that they've been in the minor leagues for quite a while. They have a strikeout percentage less than 19% and a slugging percentage greater than .550. There are 3 players, and one of them is Johnny DeLuca in all of minor league baseball. That just shows you how rare of a skill set with Johnny DeLuca being able to generate this much power while also being able to consistently have contact he has in the minor league level. And one of the other guys on that list is a guy by the name of Junior Caminero, who is a very, very highly touted prospect within the Rays organization. I think Johnny DeLuca has immense potential as far as who he can be at the big league level, just given a lot of the things that we have seen from him at the minor league level, and some of the skills that he showcased at the major league level in his very limited opportunities.
I like what Hep C says here, Austin. I think Hep C makes a great argument. He always does. Friedman learned from, and you could also say Gavin Stone, Diego Cartaya. Imagine what the Dodgers would have gotten for those two young men in 2022. Diego was the Dodgers minor league player of the year, and Gavin Stone was the minor league pitcher of the year. Imagine what they could have gotten in return after 2022 for those two, right? Mm-hmm. Quite a bit less now. So I do like what Hep's saying is, hey, you learn from that and you sell Pepio when he's high, right? You sell him, you're selling high on Ryan Pepio. It would be the argument there. I like that argument. That's a good argument. Like if you make that argument with me and I'm in a war room with you, that makes me go, yeah, you're kind of right, man. Because, yeah. I mean, is Ryan Pepio ever actually going to produce better than he did at the end of last year? I mean, odds would say hell no, right? I mean, he's not going to post a 2.14 ERA and a batting average of 180 or whatever. He's not going to do that again, right? So yeah. Right now is when you sell because it's high, you have the prospect capital to cover it, and then you get your top-end starter. It all makes sense from that perspective. So if you explain it to me like that, that makes sense. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah. So what do you think about that?
Yeah. No, I think that certainly does make a lot of sense. And I think that can be an argument that you definitely can make with a lot of these guys. Being able to sell high with a lot of your prospects when they are doing well is one of those things where it can be extremely risky. Those could be the guys that you are expecting to break out and be part of your organization. However, if it is such clogged at the top of your organization, especially with the Dodgers, with how many veterans that they prioritize and get a lot of playing time and how much star power that they have, I think it can be something that you risk doing with a lot of these guys who have shown a ton of talent, a ton of upside. You might be able to sell high on a lot of these guys and be able to fill the need that you have at the major league level. We know it is an absolute necessity for the Dodgers to add a frontline starting pitcher. With Tyler Glasnow, you can certainly make that argument that he is that frontline starting pitcher, or at least he has the potential to be that frontline starting pitcher, and a lot of the underlying metrics would suggest that he can be that for the Dodgers, and some of his past performances would certainly reflect that as well. I think with this trade in particular, the question becomes, are you able to address some of the needs, and does it fill more of the holes on your roster than what it potentially creates? And do you have a plan to potentially fill the holes that it creates? With the Johnny DeLuca, you would expect him to be kind of, let's say that he is either your left fielder or he is in that platoon with a Jason Hayward, and you are expecting to go ahead and find some sort of outfielder with that. With Manuel Margot, I think that takes care of Johnny DeLuca's spot, meaning I think they would just flip-flop.
Would you rather have Kike, though?
They could potentially add like a Kike.
Yeah, I mean, why not just re-sign Kike? I don't think
they could certainly do that, and that would certainly add some sort of versatility, and I think that's
what I'm trying to say. Tampa Bay's trying to dump Manuel Margot. This isn't about the Dodgers wanting Margot. This is about Tampa Bay trying to dump his salary and get rid of him.
Yes.
Because the Dodgers are better off just keeping Kike or whatever, right? So why fall into that trap? I don't think you have to fall into that trap. That's what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm. I think that is certainly true, and I think that in the Dodgers' minds right now, I think Manuel Margot fills in that shoes. Perhaps he is not the best option, or perhaps that they look to, after this, go ahead and trade him as well. You look at some of the moves that Atlanta has made this offseason. They've acquired pieces that they've not necessarily had a plan for. and in the trade in order to get like a Jared Kelenic, and then they moved on from like a Marcos Gonzalez from that. So that certainly could be an option, and then you can pick up go ahead and pick up Kike Hernandez or whoever you want for the outfield. But I think with a Johnny DeLuca and Emmanuel Margot, let's say them as a swap, I think instead of addressing a need that you potentially might have in the outfield, I see this at the very best as a lateral move for the Dodgers. If not, you're regressing a little bit because I like the upside of a Johnny DeLuca.
And you're paying a hell of a lot more to do it.
Yeah, and I think with the pitching side with a Tyler Glasnow versus a Ryan Pepiot, I think as we talked about during the show, there's a ton of argument that you could have as far as what's going to be best, as far as the future, as far as the upside for the playoffs. I think that is where there's a little bit more of a valid debate, and Tyler Glasnow could potentially feel part of that high-end upside starting pitcher, whereas you could fill in some of the innings with some of the other extremely talented arms that you have in the upper minor leagues of the system, the Emmett Sheehans, Nick Frasso. They could start getting opportunities at the major league level and fill the hole of a Ryan Pepiot. So I guess this trade comes down to question as far as what do you value more, and does this provide you with a better shot overall to go ahead and win the World Series next year and the years to come? Do you like more of the upside of Tyler Glasnow? Do you like the value that a Ryan Pepiot and a Johnny DeLuca provides? I think this is obviously this deal is not finalized right of this moment. Right now, it's very difficult to say kind of what exact. I think with the Manuel Margot, Johnny DeLuca, I'd much rather have Johnny DeLuca. With the Tyler Glasnow, Ryan Pepiot, that's very tough for me to make a determination as far as which one I would rather have. I see the argument for both, and I understand why the Dodgers would make a choice either way for each one of those pitchers, which makes this trade very difficult to swallow right now. Mm-hmm. Now, the thing that would change this is if the Dodgers are somehow working a way to get a guy like a Randy Arozarena in this deal, which I think would be the type of thing that they could do to potentially
Why would they get rid of Arozarena?
What was that?
Why would they get rid of Arozarena?
The Rays?
Yeah.
Because he's getting up there as far as he's starting with his arbitration process. The Rays do a lot of things differently than a lot of other organizations. If I was me, I wouldn't get rid of Arozarena. He's extremely talented. He is a known playoff performer.
He's awesome.
However, that is a player that if you're the Dodgers, you're going to try to leverage to try to get, because I think he would be the type of player that you could put into this lineup. He would be the player that would fill that hole that you have in left field and would be the player that you want to target out, a known playoff performer, a known piece that who can help energize this clubhouse, this lineup. Of course, you have the offseason, you are in deep talks with the Rays to make some sort of trade. Of course, you're going to try to get a Randy Arozarena. Now, I think that's going to add additional pieces from your farm system in order to be able to get a piece like him. But I think that is the type of player that could potentially put you over the top of the World Series. So that is, I think, for a lot of Dodgers fans, who they would want to target. Obviously, Randy Arozarena over the past 24 hours has done some things with his social media, which seem to indicate potentially something is going on. I don't think that is the case as
I've been around
him
before. He is happy-go-lucky. He's always joking around the dugout.
Yes.
That's his personality.
Yes, and that's very well likely what is going on with this. I think the point is that is the type of player that if you're a Dodgers fans, you want the Dodgers, especially if they are going all in. They're getting the Tyler Glasnow. They're going all in for this season, and every single year they're going to be doing everything they can to put that season the best team on the roster as possible and have the best players around there as possible. I think Randy Arozarena is that type of player that can just create so much depth and length to this lineup and be a known playoff performer that you want to go after. So I think while they're in talks with this, that certainly can be of question. Will the Rays actually trade him? I think it is unlikely.
Oh yeah, they
at
would.
This point. Well, it depends on exactly what they want to do, because I think at some point they are likely going to trade him, whether that is this offseason, next offseason, the following offseason, right before he hits free agency. They're going to trade Randy Arozarena at some point, because that's what they do with their players. Can you get Randy Arozarena this offseason and be able to help your team while you're in negotiations and try to get a frontline starting pitcher? I think that would make this trade a lot more, leave yourself with a lot better taste in your mouth with this trade.
One of the questions is, who are they going to want for Arozarena? So if you're going to take Glasnow and Arozarena,
it's not going to be cheap.
Ryan Pepio, Johnny DeLuca, they need a catcher, so they're going to want Diego Cartaya, which is fine. You have all the catching prospects. These are the guys that you want to get rid of, are the guys where you can absorb, which is the argument for Pepio, too. My only argument there is he is the one guy that is the most Major League ready out of all these guys. Don't take that guy. Give him all the other ones that aren't Major League ready, right? And not because I think they're not as good or any of that, just because I've seen it with Pepio at the Major League level. So they're going to want Ryan Pepio, Johnny DeLuca, Diego Cartaya. Then they're going to want probably Nick Frasso, probably Landon Knack, and then probably somebody like maybe a Theron Lorenzo lower down in your organization. That's the haul it's going to take, something like that. That's not an exaggeration.
Yeah, it is going to be, if they decide to do this, because Arozarena is an extremely talented player and has 3 years of club control. It is going to take a massive haul in order to
and it would be worth it. It would absolutely be worth it.
Yeah, and
if you're going to get rid of Pepio and DeLuca anyways, it's worth it to get rid of all the other guys, because you have the depth to absorb it. You've already made that statement with Pepio. Just jump out of the deep end, go get Arozarena, give up Cartaya, give up go do it. I mean, if you're going to be in, be all in. It would be worth that would be worth it for me.
Yeah, and I think that would elevate your team just even that much more, create even that much more depth on your team. You're already trying to create some type of super team, some sort of superstar team, because of the flexibility that Shohei Ohtani and the way his contract was structured. You have the ability to add as much star power as you can, and you have the absolute necessity to take advantage of the window when you can. And especially when Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, Shohei Ohtani, you're only going to get older from now on. So I think the best opportunity to take advantage of this window is early on, which means you must do everything you can to put the best team on the field as possible now. So whether that is to get rid of a lot of these guys, as much as that pains me, as much as that pains you, and as much as that pains the organization and Dodgers fans, like I said last show, that pain that you feel getting rid of a lot of these prospects is so much less than the pain that you felt getting eliminated from 100%. The Padres, getting eliminated from the Diamondbacks in the first round the past couple of postseasons. That is unacceptable for this organization, and they must do everything in their power in order to go over, above and beyond that, and make sure that they actually win a World Series. And hopefully there can be a parade or multiple parades for Dodgers fans, because with the contract that Shohei Ohtani signed, they're going to be owing $68 million starting in 2034, something like that, after the contract is over. The opportunity for the Dodgers to win the World Series is now. And if that puts them over the top, they must do everything in their power to go above and beyond and win the World Series now, because this window is open. It is wide open with what Shohei Ohtani did.
I think Arozarena gets you over the top next year and beyond, because if you go get Arozarena, your outfield is solidified forever. I mean, whoever you want to platoon with Jason Hayward or Kike or whoever you want to keep, right?
Yeah,
for that
plus
third
you could
outfielder.
potentially, especially with Hayward kind of moving on,
Right.
you could potentially have a guy like a Andy Pages if
Correct.
you keep him in your organization.
Jose Ramos,
next
something
year,
like that, yeah.
Jose Ramos, whoever, fill in that role
Ryan
in the
Ward.
future, and I think they would do a good job with that.
Yeah, so this year, obviously, it helps you because you get Glasnow and a Rosarina, okay? And then next year, here's where it really, really helps next year, Austin, because I think you're going to have to hit the free agency market next year. Whether that mean keep Buehler, whether that mean re-sign Tyler Glasnow, whatever that means. I think you're going to have to probably get 2 more pitchers in free agency next year. So if you don't have Randy Arozarena, you still have to go get that outfielder next year. Mm-hmm. And you have that much less prospect capital to do it with. Now is the time to go get a Arozarena, because if you go get him, you have every other part of your team completely figured out except for 2 pitchers next year, right? Mm-hmm. Then you go figure out which 2 pitchers. Let's say you have to give up Frasso and Knack and Kyle Hurt and 2 or 3 of these guys. But you have Randy Arozarena and every other part of your team is settled. That's why you have these prospects, is so you can go get a Randy Arozarena, or so you can pitch him like you're doing Bobby Miller, one of the two. So if you have Randy Arozarena going into next year, all you have to do at that point is go pick the 2 free agent pitchers you want, go get them, and now you have the best team for 2024 and also the best teams for the next 5 years after that. That is absolutely 100% completely and totally the way to go.
Yeah, you can either do the track that the Dodgers seem to be, like you outlined, get the guys, use the prospects that you have in order to get a lot of the guys that can help your team over the top that are ready to go. Or you can be like the Rays and play a lot of these guys, get them a lot of the experience. I think where the Dodgers are at right now, with the flexibility that Shohei provides with the contract during this window, you have the opportunity to build some sort of super team, to be the new evil empire per se with the Dodgers. Do everything in your power to take advantage of this window. That doesn't mean be completely reckless with all of this. However, you might have to be a little bit reckless in order to
aggressive,
be able
not
to
reckless.
take it.
Aggressive.
Yes. Aggressive is a much better word for that. You have to be aggressive in order to take advantage of this window. If that be give up a lot of these prospects, especially because they might not be able to get and probably won't get the experience at the major league level that they desperately need to, so be it. Go after and get the top guys, build the best possible team that you can at the major league level, and go win a couple of World Series now, because now is the opportunity to do that. It is the best opportunity that the Dodgers have had. They must take advantage of it.
Austin, what have I said going all the way back to the trade deadline? Either
What's
go
that?
big or go home.
Yep.
Either go get the elite player or don't make the move at all. I don't want Manuel Margot. I want Randy Arozarena. I don't care what it takes to get him. If you go get Tyler Glasnow and Randy Arozarena, I don't care what you give up. I don't. Because you're going to make that up in free agency next year, and then in 2024, you're going to win a World Series. Or likely to. I don't give a damn what you give up at that point. I do care if you're getting a Tyler Glasnow who might not even be on the mound because he's always hurt, and then you're getting Manuel Margot, who's not better than Johnny DeLuca. I do care about that. But again, if you go out and you get a potentially elite pitcher and then an elite left fielder, period, end of discussion, Randy Arozarena is elite. He is an elite player. He's an elite human being. He would fit in he's that Joker type of guy that would be the perfect mentality for the Dodgers. He's perfect. Okay, I've said it from the start. Go get the elite players. Screw this stuff about getting the midline guys and using those guys instead of your prospect. That just goes back to what the Dodgers have been doing, is using these veteran midline guys instead of their prospects, and it doesn't work. It hasn't worked. They have proof it doesn't work. Go get the elite guy or don't do it at all.
Yeah, either go get the elite guy or give the gold mine that you have in the farm system a chance to
Correct. One of
succeed
the
and
two.
become that elite guy. I
Not
think you have to go
don't take
either one of
Manuel
those.
Margot and make him the reason why you're not using your farm system.
Yeah.
That's my
And
point.
yes, and I think that is the frustration in this trade and the
For me.
reason why we want them to go above and beyond. Even if it causes pain now, we believe that pain will be evaporated because I think that provides us with the best possible chance to win the World Series. Now, will the Rays trade Randy Rosarena? That becomes a question, but you have the resources to be able to present an offer and the ability to be able to communicate that they are going to trade this guy at some point. They just don't have the financial resources. As much as that hurts Rays fans, as much as that is bad for baseball for a lot of these smaller markets, not to retain a lot of their talent, the Dodgers must capitalize and they must be extremely aggressive in order to get the best player possible. Randy Rosarena fills a hole. He provides so much more depth. He provides a playoff experience. He would be elite.
He's a hell of a playoff player.
Oh, he is incredibly talented. He's
I
done
think
it
you could
on
make
the
the
world
argument
stage
he would
as
be
well.
more valuable than Tyler Glasnow.
Yeah, and I think that you're absolutely right with that. He is so much of a valuable piece and would be an incredible get for this organization. It's going to take a lot to get him, a lot to convince the Rays. But it is one of those moves that you have to do everything that you can to try to get that to work. And I think that is the type of deal that we would prefer the Dodgers to make, as opposed to getting more of a lateral type move, which I think this is what it is. Even if you think Tyler Glasnow presents some upside as far as the postseason is concerned, even though he hasn't performed in the postseason in the past, I think going above and beyond is the thing that you have to do in order to capitalize on this window.
I don't have a problem with Tyler Glasnow. You're going to tell me, hey, we're all in. We're trying to win a World Series, and he has the chance to be the number one starter. That, by the way, you've been bitching about since, last July, right? So
Yeah.
we have a chance to go get this number one starter. Now you're bitching because you don't want to. I can't do that, right? I can't. Again, what I'm bitching about is this propensity to go get Manuel Margot and play him instead of Johnny DeLuca. That doesn't make any sense to me. When, in my opinion, you have the prospect capital to give away and then also absorb to go get Randy Rosarena instead. I mean, you have 17 pitchers and they're all 25 years old. I mean, Ryan Pepio, Emmett Sheehan's 24. Okay, he's 24. Nick Frasso, 25. Landon Knack, 26. River Ryan, 25. Kyle Hurt, 25. Ben Kasparius, 24. He's still just in Double-A, right? And that dude hit 98 this year. Okay, you got 1 million of these guys. Okay, if you gave away 3 of them, you still have 3 more of them left that still don't. Okay, if you gave away 3 of these guys, Austin, you still have 3 of them that still are probably blocked because next year, guess what you go do for your pitching staff? You go get 2 free agents.
Yeah.
Right?
And that's not even touching the depth that they have on the
Ohtani,
lower system. That's
Dustin
not touching
May.
any of the lefties that they had that were in Great Lakes as well. That's not
Correct.
touching any of the guys who have immense upside, like a guy like a Jan Castro has. The guys like Peyton Martin, like Jared Karros, Peter Huback, all of these guys have.
Yeah.
They have a ton of depth. And so if you can utilize a lot of the depth that you have, especially if you're not planning on giving those guys opportunities at the big league level, if you're able to utilize that in order to get guys who can help you win a World Series while also providing, and I think this is an aspect that both you and I are very passionate about, giving the guys that are in your system opportunities to play at the big league level, whether that is with the Dodgers or whether that is within another organization. If you're able to give those guys opportunities while also helping your organization get the best player available and be able to win a World Series, that I think is something that you have to do, and you have to be willing to accept the trade that goes down in order to get the elite players that help you maximize the window and capitalize on the window that has been created with Shohei Ohtani's contract structure, which is so unique and such a gift for the Dodgers in this short term where they have this window open.
It's not big enough. This isn't big enough. Get Glasnow and a Rosarina. Use your prospect capital. Go do it. Put a Rosarina in your left field for the next 3 years. James Outman's in center field for your next 5 years. Jason Hayward and Johnny DeLuca, or whoever it might be, Jason Hayward and Kike Hernandez is your platoon in right field. You go get Yamamoto, right? Okay, so you get Yamamoto, you get Tyler Glasnow, you get Randy Rosarina. You get all that on the heels of Shohei Ohtani, and that becomes your lineup. And then next year you roll it over to Yamamoto, and then Shohei Ohtani. You have Randy Rosarina in left field. Then you go out and probably get 2 more free agents, and then you have Emmett Sheehan or whoever's going to be left, right? Of the Emmett Sheehan, you're going to have to. So you're going to get rid of Ryan Pepio, and then of Emmett Sheehan, Kyle Hurt, Nick Frasso, Landon Knack, Gavin Stone, and River Ryan. Of those 6 that are 24, 25, 26 years old, of those 6, you're probably only going to have to give up, 2 of them, plus Diego Cartaya. That would be depending on which ones they are, right? I mean, I think if it was Emmett Sheehan and Nick Frasso, which would hurt, right? But I think for Nick Frasso, say Nick Frasso, River Ryan, Diego Cartaya, Ryan Pepio, Johnny DeLuca. I think that gets you Randy Rosarina and Tyler Glasnow. I think that's a win-win for everybody. It's a win for the players because they get better opportunities. The Dodgers become elite. They're going to win World Series. And the Tampa Bay Rays get young.
Yeah, and I think even if you didn't want to go with the pitching route, you have guys like Miguel Vargas and Michael Busch who, in this case, would likely be blocked. You look at
that'd be great.
Third base, second base. In this case,
if
left field would be blocked from them as well. So you could utilize that and be able to give them opportunities as well. So I think there is a lot of different possibilities that you could have, and this is the type of move that I would rather see the Dodgers make than the move of Tyler Glasnow, Manuel Margot for a Ryan Pepio, Johnny DeLuca. I think that is a little bit more of a lateral move instead of a move forward to try to help you win the World Series next season and the next couple of seasons with the immense value that a Randy Rosarina has. Even if you have to include a Manuel Margot as far as the Tyler Glasnow, Randy Rosarina trade, just to try to help with the financials for Tampa Bay. If you have to take on that money, you have flexibility in the near years with the way that Shohei Ohtani's contract is structured. I think you do whatever you can to try to make something like that works because that move helps put you over the top, and then you go ahead and address another one of those frontline starting pitching to try to continue to put your team over the top because there is going to be no excuses for this Dodgers team. They must win and capitalize on this window.
More than one.
They're going to have to win more than one. And the baseball world, just looking at the way, as much as a lot of people love Shohei Ohtani as a player and as a person, as much as people love these players that the Dodgers have, they are becoming the evil empire because of the way the contract is structured. And a lot of Dodgers fans don't care, but a lot of people are going to be rooting for their downfall. They're going to be rooting for them not to win a World Series. You absolutely must capitalize on this window because the window is wide open for the Dodgers.
I think Scott has it exactly right. He says fans will feel different about trading Pepio if Friedman can secure Rosarina by throwing in like River Ryan, Michael Busch, DeLuca, or whoever it takes. I am that guy who he's talking about on steroids. That's what that makes me feel right about. I just went on for like 10 minutes about that, right? Scott absolutely nailed that, in my opinion. We also had some talk about, it's always interesting talk about which advanced analytics actually are accurate and which ones aren't. That's one of those deals where, to me, that's beauty's in the eye of the beholder, man. I know some people who don't like advanced analytics, which I think you have to like them. There's too much evidence to say they work. but I do think there is a preference to where we have this style of baseball. So these sets of advanced analytics actually predict our style of baseball better than a different style of baseball. Does that make sense? Like the Dodgers like high-riding four seams, tumbling changeups, left-turning sliders, and sweepers. So a certain set of analytics are going to actually predict future success for that type of pitch mix than like a Gavin Stone that relies on a right-turning slider. Does that make sense? So like exit velo for a sinker guy, that's in the 93, 94. A lower exit velo is going to be more important for him, whereas a high-riding four-seam guy, it's going to be more like K rate and whiff rate. Does that make sense? So it's based on the type of, you can't put them all for everybody for the exact same type of player. You have to use advanced analytics for every single type of pitcher you have. And what I'm saying with Ryan Pepio, the thing that he does is that whenever he makes you swing the bat, you don't hit the ball hard. So it's entirely up to him. When he goes into the zone, it makes it very hard to hit. So to me, that's the most important advanced analytic for Ryan Pepio, because that puts things back into his lap in terms of he's in control of it, because when he is in the strike zone, you don't hit it very hard. Hey, let's get into some of these comments, Austin. We got about 5 more minutes, and then we'll get out of here. You want to read them? You want me to?
I'll let you go ahead and read them. And I know there's no way that we're going to get to all of the comments tonight. You guys have been absolutely phenomenal in the comments section. We love the growth that we're having at Dodgers Daily over here. Just love the interaction that you guys have. We'll kind of do a little bit of a quick hit. There are other shows where there's not as much news going on, where we're able to get to a lot more of the comments. So please, for the future shows that we have, please come back and we'll get to as many comments as we can possible. Tonight we're going to get to at least a couple of them, address them in the final minutes that we have for the show. But it's getting pretty late here on the East Coast.
Yeah. So I know it is for you, Austin, but we're not such
you're totally fine.
I'd like to get a couple of these.
Yeah.
We can't make teams take who we want them to take. There's no doubt about that. Matt always does such a wonderful job. That's exactly right. I mean, they have to want who you're actually offering. Steven says, good evening, Steven. Thank you so much for joining. Says this move is a net zero to me. We need to add starting pitchers without giving up any of our existing starters, because you're not actually adding depth. I would agree with that. That's kind of my point there. Hep C says we have like 10 Ryan Pepios in our farm that we've never heard of. Well, I've heard of all of them, and I've seen all of them pitch quite a bit. I can tell you who all they are, going all the way back to.
Yeah, and if you watch Dodgers Daily, you'll learn about who those guys are too.
Yeah, and he is 100% correct. Your lefty crop was in high A last year, and then you also had your another crop of righties with Peter Hubeck, and you just mentioned him. Jared Karros actually came up late to high A. Then in double A, honestly, the only guy that you really have left from that staff has been Kasparius. So you kind of have a gap. It's thinner than you think. After you get past this gap that we're at right now that's Major League ready, it's quite a bit thinner than you think, especially right-handed, because then you get to your lefties before you get down to Jared Karros and Peter Hubeck, who I think are probably 2 years away from making.
And there's certainly the argument that you could never have enough pitching as well. I think there's certainly that argument, just with the amount of injuries that happen to pitchers. So I think having concern about the depth of your organization, I think, is something that's very valid.
Tomatley is just an awesome baseball. I don't know. He said we saw 5 prospect starters last year. 2 of them, Grove and Stone, weren't close to Pepio. I would agree with that. Although I thought Grove, his stuff played up in the pen. I thought he was impressive in the bullpen.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he provided a lot of value out of the pen, and I think he's going to continue to provide value out there. And I think he's going to be one of those pitchers that, if given the opportunity, that Dodgers can rely on out of the pen.
Yeah, he's saying kind of what I'm saying. Keep the proven commodity, which is Ryan Pepio, and dangle the unprovens like Nick Frasso, Landon Knack, guys like that. Mm-hmm. That would be great if you could do that. Pepio for 1 year of Glasnow sounds like a ripoff. Yep, we have a comment there. They're going to get pitchers. I would agree with that. I think I'd address that pretty good. Paul says, I'm not surprised. The Japanese culture values hard work. Yeah, I think they're talking about Otani's mom still works, no doubt about that. Will the Dodgers sign Yamamoto? I think they're the favorites. They put on a pretty good show for him the other day. I think the only way they wouldn't is if he wants to just kind of do his own thing, which I don't think. I mean, we'll see. I don't know Yamamoto, but I would say the Dodgers are the favorites at this point, and we nailed the Ohtani deal too. So, okay,
Yeah,
Scott says. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll just add one sort of point with that. I think the Yankees are very highly considered in that as well, and they desperately need a starting pitcher as well. And they certainly have the finances to match just about any offer that the Dodgers can as well. So there's certainly a key player in this race to look out for as well.
Yeah, and then we have some back and forth on who the 2025 rotation would be. The trade for Pepio needs to be fair. 1 year Glasnow for Pepio would be an inexcusable overpay, unless you got a Rosarina. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So hey, I think there's Jay right there. Jay is one of the most unbelievable baseball people too. I'm only okay with trading Pepio if we get a Rosarina, not Margot. See, Jay's unbelievable, man. If you ever read his comments, I swear to God, he should. If he's not a lawyer, I don't know what he does for a living. He should be, because every time I read one of his comments, it's like, holy cow, it's unbelievable how well versed he is and how intelligent. But hey, I think we're gonna have to stop right there. My voice is waning, and it is past Austin's bedtime. So, how's that sound?
Just so you know, I do not go to bed at 7:49. I'm not on Pacific time for those of you out in California, Southern California. It is currently 10:50 right now here in the great state of Michigan. It's been an absolute pleasure, though, talking about this, talking about the news, talking about Yorbit Vivas, Victor Gonzalez getting opportunities in New York, just being able to look forward to the upside that Trey Sweeney is going to have in Oklahoma City next season, and talking about a little bit about Ohtani. I know we didn't get to as much of him as probably wanted to talk about, but that's because of this potential trade between the Rays and the Dodgers. Lots to talk about with that. We'll see if that actually goes forward with the terms, or if there's some alterations, or if there even is a trade as well. There's a lot to look forward to if you are a fan of the Los Angeles Dodgers. It is a very good time to be a fan of the Los Angeles Dodgers. You were able to get your number one target in free agency in Shohei Ohtani. There are still holes that need to be addressed with this roster, but you have so much to be grateful for as a fan of the Los Angeles Dodgers. There's so much excitement for that, and that also creates so much to be talking about. And we're so grateful for the audience and crowd that we're able to have. It has been absolute phenomenal. I think this just shows the absolute just the impact and the hard work that especially Casey has done for years on this channel as well. Just to see the growth that it's been able to have is something that is very encouraging, I know, especially to him. And we just absolutely are so grateful and love the audience that we have with this.
Started from zero, man. I didn't have a Dodgers Nation or a Dodgers Digest to back me, man. You and I started this thing from zero, right?
Yes.
I mean, we just started doing it. So we appreciate everybody out there. Michael, I want to get to his comment. He says, I'm discounting the pipeline of players from Japan that will want to play for the Dodgers because of Ohtani. Totally agree with that. I talked about that quite a bit on the Saturday show. So, hey, guys, that's all we're going to be able to get to tonight. I apologize we didn't get to more comments, but we had a lot to talk about. And also, my voice is just barely working. So, anyways, that's going to be it for tonight. So, thank you for tuning in, and go Dodgers.